What really killed fantasy, or who really killed fantasy? That's a great question. Brian Niemeyer, who's an excellent author and a friend of the channel, wrote a wonderful article, and I want to share some of this with you because he gives some good thoughts, and I'll give my thoughts on this as well. As we often talk about George R.R. Martin and his destructiveness of the genre, especially when it comes to epic fantasy. Nobody even wants to check out an epic fantasy series anymore because it's like, well, just wait till it's done, right? Because you never know if it's actually going to get finished. And that's really hurt a lot of authors who are actually trying to put in the work. But there's more to it than just that. And so we'll read Niemeyer's thoughts, as they're very excellent, and get into the fantasy news. Thank you for being here, guys. I'm not the official fantasy news on the Daniel Green channel, but I like to call it like it is. We don't shill here. I tried to watch his channel the other day. He was shilling for Ann Leckie. As an aside here, Ann Leckie is like the person who like really pushed like the new pronouns, Zer stuff in science fiction books like a dozen years ago. That, of course, permeated our culture and kind of ruined things. They gave her a Hugo Award for that entire series multiple times, and now she's got new books out doing her same crap. And that's what the mainstream industry's become, what fantasy's become, what science fiction's become. That's why I'm here bringing it back, guys. So what our goal is here is to create and make things that are making science fiction and fantasy great again. This is my series, Valiant Frontiers. It's about a starship crew that's exploring. It's got a sense of wonder. It's got real heroism. This is Captain Christopher Conley and his crew of the EAS Valiant, who are doing, the work that is for adventurers and is, good stuff. So each one of these books has a full science fiction concept to it that's its own unique storyline. The characters continue along through it, which is great stuff. And we have some of the premium hardcovers. We are making the nicest hardcovers I've ever made. I love it. I can't wait to actually show you some samples of this stuff because just the level that we are attaining is some of the best work I've ever done, just from the quality of the books itself and, of course, the stories. And I hope you'll check it out. So this is in the description below. Support our channel. Support real independent science fiction and fantasy. Thanks for being here. We're getting pretty close to funding. And thanks for reading, everybody. So let's get into this. Hilary Lane of The Second Story released another thoughtful video essay, this time on the history of modern fantasy publishing. Her core claim is as bold as it is accurate. Fantasy isn't just an ancient genre, it's a modern corporate invention. Yes, this might sound shocking to anyone who's raised on the pop cult catechism, which is, of course, the cult of the new, the people who support all the new pop whatever it is, right? Weren't the stories of Tolkien, Lewis, and Homer fantasy? Not quite. Fantastical storytelling is as old as mankind itself. Gilgamesh fighting monsters, Odysseus encountering witches and gods, Dante passing through hell. None of these were written under the label of fantasy. But now what we think of as fantasy is shelved in its own section of the bookstore and didn't exist until after 1960. It gets even worse because everything there now is not even real fantasy. It's romantasy, another story. It didn't spring from Tolkien's pen either. Lane rightly points out that Tolkien never intended to found a genre. It's well known that he detested allegories, and he sought not to mimic others to craft a new secondary world with its own languages, histories, or metaphysics. Lord of the Rings is a mythopia in a true sense, a re-engagement with archetypal imagination, rooted in Catholic theology. Its power comes not from world-building or magic systems, but from the truth of its moral vision, evil as privation, good as sacrifice, and providence working invisibly through the weakness. Which is to say that Tolkien's work isn't fantasy at all, but a new Christian myth for a modern age. So if Tolkien didn't create fantasy as a genre, who did? Lane identifies the culprit as Lester Del Rey from Del Rey Books, my friends. From there, the story turned into tragedy and farce after Terry Brooks' Sword of Shannara proved that a Tolkien imitation could sell, and that's exactly why that came out. He was imitating Tolkien, Terry Brooks, and it was definitely a cheap knockoff. It was the Temu version of Tolkien for sure, and that just went like hotcakes, right? He imposed a new house formula, secondary world with magic, where a male protagonist triumphs over evil, using some combination of technical knowledge and virtue with the help of a guiding spirit. The formula worked for a while, but it came at a terrible cost as it just got reiterated and reiterated and reiterated. That reduced Tolkien's myth to a checklist of what you needed to see. The chosen one gets his sword and goes and fights the evil, right? Instead of mythopia, we get pastiche, and organic storytelling was replaced by manufactured world building. From there, the cycle became predictable. Brooks and Tolkien clones, Moorcock posturing as the anti-Tolkien, but really the anti-Del Rey. Martin, George R.R. Martin, with the Grimdark Brigade, who mistook nihilism for realism. That's a big one right there. And today's hope, punk, and inclusive fantasy, which are just counter formulas trapped in the same orbit. Each new movement claims rebellion. Each only forces the dead pub dogma. Here's the key question. Why has fantasy been reduced to an endless loop of formulas and counterformulas? Because the industry is divorced from imagination and transcendent. Myth is not a lie, nor is mere entertainment. Like faith, it's a way of knowing, a way to attempt to grapple with metaphysical truth. When Dante descends into hell, he's not indulging in a flight of fantasy. He is dramatizing a theological reality. Modern fantasy, by contrast, is deliberately cut off from spiritual roots. Corporate publishers don't want transcendence. They want units shipped. And they sell simulacra, worlds without souls, quests without meaning, crosses without grace. What formula does is try to replace secondary world faith. Instead of a sub-creation that points beyond itself, you get a sandbox of self-indulgence. And when that hunger and truth goes unsatisfied, readers tune out, or they drift into ritualized consumerism, where they vainly seek meaning by buying the next book or streaming the next show. And that is what's happened to fantasy and science fiction all the way around. It's become a commodity for these corporations. It's not about you or me. It's not about readers. It's not about growth anymore. And it's really, really sad to watch. Of course, this doesn't even get into the whole romantasy genre. It doesn't even get into just how indulgent Game of Thrones was and just how crazy nihilistic and how degenerate it all was. That pushes the next level of degeneracy because they have to up the ante every single time. And then you get your, male bull cow milking farm or whatever they call it these days. That's where that eventually leads. Yikes. But this is where we're at these days. And this is exactly why independents have to bring things back, my friends. I'm trying to do so with Valiant Frontiers. This is everything that you want out of science fiction. This is what science fiction was meant to be, with its optimism, with its look for the future, with humanity striving to be better than itself and to explore. I love it, guys, and I hope you'll check it out. It's in the description below. Leave a comment down below. This was a kind of a quick summary, glossing over a lot of terms that maybe a lot of normies didn't know. If you need any thoughts on things, if you want me to respond to that, let me know. I'll try to clarify for you if you are interested. And join our community too, because we got a great Discord and a great newsletter where we are trying to build a new culture, and it's all with your help that we can do so. That's all in the description below. Thanks for being here. We'll be back.